Can you tell us a little bit about your current project? What are you working on now? I'm writing a book about some of the most important technological inventions of the 19th and early 20th century. It's about how things like typewriter or the fax machine were developed and so on. That sounds really interesting. It is. It's fascinating. The personality behind this invention are particularly fun to read about. Like a lot of inventors were amateurs, and some of them were considered to be nuts, crazy. But then they had this incredible determination. They believe absolute in what they are doing. Take George Eastman, for example. He was a keen photographer and he was about to go on vacation to the Caribbean to take some pictures. But then the night before he was supposed to leave, he looked at all of his photo gear, and in the 1970s, the photo gear was incredibly cumbersome. All, class plates and chemicals and equipment and so on. And he said to himself, I'm not carrying all this stuff. There's got to be an easier way to take photographs. So he canceled his vacation, quit his job, stayed home, and invented film instead. That's great. The guy was a bank clerk, 24 years old, but that was the mood at the time. Talk about a positive attitude. It was a real can do spirit. People were asking questions. I wonder if he could have a machine that does this, or why can we do that? And that they would set out to do it and they wouldn't give up. But then they also discovered things by accident. Oh yes, like microwave oven. The microwave oven was actually developed from the market nitrogen. That's the power tube that drives a Marillion machine. One day, the scientist Percy Spencer, with his name, was standing next to a Martian. He has a chocolate bar in his pocket, and the chocolate melted. So he said, that's interesting. So the next day he came with a popcorn, and guess what happened? Pop. Yes, that essentially was where the idea of microwave came from, just by chance, really. It was called a range range because of a radar, of course. It took a while to be developed and so on, but that happened too, didn't it? A lot of things didn't take off immediately. They didn't necessarily fail in market, right? Right. Some product was just not in the right place at the right time. The classic example of that was a fax machine. I bet you didn't know we had fax machine before we had telephone. Really? Yes, the French were using a very effective fax machine in the 1960s, before a telephone, in fact. But the idea never took off. At that time, people were more interested in the telegraph. That's amazing. Yes, people have tried to ready for a new thing, but they go accepted. It took revision years to convince people to use typewriter. Everybody said, "Oh, it's great. It's a way of the future. It's a wonderful machine." But they wouldn't. For 10 years, it didn't sell. And that was because letters were handwritten. And that was what you did. There were a whole art to writing letters. People didn't think it was appropriate to type them because what was typeset was mainly used for advertising. So if people got a typewritten letters, they were either offended or they thought it was junk mail. I guess you had to convince enough people at one time, right? Eventually, businesses started using them, and then everyone had to have one. But it took about 10 years for the typewriter to become really popular.